Hey everyone, in this video I'm going to be going over female poses with clothes. So once again, I have it on my phone here. I have a standing, a sitting one, and a dynamic one. So if you guys can see the downloadable resources, go ahead and download that and use that for your reference if you want to. Of course, as always, if you want to use your own poses, go ahead and do that as well. So let's get started, and I will go a little bit quicker because I don't want this to drag on for too long. But anyways, let's get started. So with our first pose, we always want to draw our head, understand where it's going in space. So you want to draw across lines depending on where the head is facing, right? So our eye line is facing this way because she's looking out in space. Then we have our neck. That's one hand down from the nose. And then what we can do is we can draw two boxes. This box would look better if it was more dynamic, so I would curve it more to the side where her shoulder is more up. It's not like that in the actual photo, but I'm doing this for artistic purposes. Then what we can do is we can go ahead and draw one box. That will be a ribcage box. And then we have our pelvis box, which will be a little bit more wide because for a girl, usually we would have wider hips. Halfway point is our pelvis. And I'm going to be changing this just because I like to. But anyways, here we have our arm, which I'm going to, rather than go into the center, I'm going to extend outward. So I can see more of the pose in her. And here we have her hands being collected on one side. So now I'm going to be drawing her legs. I will zoom out to see if I can. There, I could. And then what I can do now is I can go to the legs. So the legs, it looks like that she's kind of bending them, which is cute. I like it. So I'm going to be doing the same thing. I'm going to draw a line here to show where it's going to bend. I'm going to bend it lower in this case. I'm not going to bend it too much since it's more of a standing pose. And I'm going to keep this leg more straight. And her feet more flat. So this one will be more in the air. Oops. So this is what it will look like. So we can also draw in her legs from thick to thin. Make sure it's nice and slender. And then we have the calf. Of course, if it's too short, go ahead and change it, or if it's too long, go ahead and change it. But we just want the basic shapes in there. These can be corrected later. So that's her legs, and that's the top of her body. So let's zoom in and let's actually start detailing these out. So as you can see, I'm going a little bit faster now. This gesture took about 3 minutes. For you guys, it may take a little bit longer. Feel free to pause if you need to. So we're going to go off from here and just start erasing most of this. And that's just because I don't want this to distract the rest of my drawing. So I'm just erasing it. But I can see enough that I can draw on top of. So here we have her head, her ears. And then here we have her. Then here we have her collar, her neck. Then the collar wraps around her neck like a cylinder. So you can see two sides. You can see one side which is underneath, and then the other side which goes over. So notice that I always wrap around like a cylinder because that's, what the neck is. Here we have a ribbon, which I will make a little bit bigger than in the image, just because it stands out a little bit more. If you want to draw the hair as well, go ahead. So here's the ribbon, which is just two triangles connected to one point. So here is her hair, which it can be drawn very simply. Make sure it's overlapping her scalp, so it looks more puffy and nice. Then we can draw in her sleeves. So if you want, you can draw in the basic shape of her arms. We have her elbow, we have her upper arm, and we have her hand. The sleeves end right about her end at her elbow area. So I'm going to make this more scrunched up because it's, pulled to her elbow, making her arm a little bit more slender so it doesn't look too thick. Her sleeves look a little bit puffy, so I'm going to drag this down and overlap it over on top. And I'm going to draw in some folds to show that it's connecting downward. If you want to add a little bit of more chest, go ahead and do that. Here is the middle section where it's buttoned up, and here is some folds to show that the fabric is stretching a little bit. Around her waist, we have her skirt, which is more like a high waist skirt. But just because it's a high waist skirt doesn't mean that everything else on her body moves up. So just keep in mind that the rest of her body, lower body, will be in the same position. It's just a higher waistline. Here we have her other arm. And then same thing on the other side, scrunched up shoulders, scrunched up sleeves with a little bit of bagginess all around the sides. And here we have her other arm. Maybe she's grabbing some shopping bags in this case. So this is a little shopping bag here. So this will be good enough for the top. Now let's go towards the bottom. If you remember how to draw pleats, just make sure that you go one pleat over another. So we have our first pleat, then we have our second, then we have our third, then we have our fourth and fifth, until it reaches all across the girl's waist or her legs. If you want to shade it in, go ahead and do so as well. You don't have to though. I'm putting in a little bit of value just to show the distance and a little bit of depth into the skirt. Let me zoom out so I can focus on the legs now. So the legs will be pretty easy. All you can do is just continue and refine drawing her legs. So we have her front leg, her kneecap, her calf, some almost knee-high socks. Shade that in if you want to. And then here we have her shoes. So usually these kind of shoes are a little bit more on the unique side. Let me zoom in. They have this kind of dressy look to them, but they're not sneakers, obviously. So they are kind of more like dress shoes. So we have the tongue area, then we have a strap over on top, and then we have a heel at the back, and flat in the beginning. Same thing on the other side. So you have a strap over on top. And the beginning is more boxy. And then we have a little bit of a heel at the end. So that is our girl standing pose. This is what it looks like. So far so good. Let me zoom out and see what this looks like as a whole. Pretty good. So on to the next one is our sitting pose, which will be a more elegant pose rather than a cutesy pose. She has a more elegant look with her hairstyle and her clothing. So let's get started once again. So first we want to draw in. First we want to draw in her head, which is more of a side view. Sort of a side 3/4 view, but more leaning side view. We can draw in her hair very loosely, which is kind of like a little low bun. Then her neck is straight down. You can see her clavicle kind of bending downward, so we can sort of see downward from her clavicle. Here we have her chest, which kind of, she has good posture, so she's kind of standing a little bit more sitting a little bit more straight, so I'm going to curve this a little bit. So make sure to draw in the pelvis area as well. Because she's sitting, she has her legs kind of crossed. So her legs, one leg will go above the other. So this one will go up. And this leg will kind of go towards us. This is the leg underneath. So draw in the calf, draw a little bit of the kneecap. And her legs look a lot longer because she's in heels. Therefore, her foot is a little bit more shown. That's why it looks longer. And then her other leg will be bent. So try to not also confuse which foot is which. Basically, to not confuse which foot is which is to know where the big toes are. So the big toes are inverted towards each other. So let's say, for example, left, this is your right foot. It will always be pointing inward. So this is your right foot, and this is your left foot. I know it looks like this is right and this is left, but if you turn this person around, this is the right, this is the left. The big toes are always facing each other. They're not facing outward. So when people draw what they call two left feet, this is what it means. Left foot, and then this is the smaller toes, and then left foot. So you don't want to do that because these toes are not inverted. They're not facing each other. That's why it looks like it's two left feet. So anyways, aside from that, let me erase that. I'll probably put it somewhere else. If not, you'll see it on the video. So once again, here we have the legs. Now let's go with the arms. Looks like her arm is sort of bent and going in. She's holding something. You want to draw in her chest as well if you want to. And then her other arm is sort of hidden, but her other hand is seen holding the same thing. So it's sort of hidden at the back and bending where we don't see it. So this is what it looks like so far. Let's draw in the chair real quick. Make sure it's in the right perspective. Let's just draw an ordinary chair here. Let's just draw like that. Okay, so here we have our sitting pose. Now what we can do is we can erase and then just draw some clothes on top. So for her clothes, what we can do is we can analyze what kind of clothing she has. So it looks like she has a loose kind of shirt, and then over that is sort of like a little dress that overlaps and kind of tucks in her form a bit more. So it looks like this is a regular loose shirt. Not regular, it's more of like a dress shirt that wraps around her neck and then has very, very loose sleeves. So try to draw her sleeves as if they were like curtains. So it goes down straight, overlaps over her arm, and then you can draw some pipe folds. On the other side, kind of just indicate the other side here. So here we have her chest, which is covered by a dress on top. So we have the straps over her shoulders, and then you want to curve the bust side down. You want to make sure that it's all curved, so if you want, you can draw a seam line that goes down like so to show the breast form. And then we can also draw a little bit of folds, kind of just showing that this is kind of like loosely hanging over on top. Here we have the arm. Here we have the watch. And then here we have the hand. holding a wallet, it seems. Or a box. I'll just put a box in it. Here's the other hand. We have the thumb, and then we have the index finger, and then the rest of the fingers kind of come forward. For the hips, you can see that there's some nice linear folds kind of going through because she's sitting down, so the waist, or sorry, her hip is kind of like facing this way. So you want to make sure that the folds indicate where she's sitting and how she's sitting. And it looks like she has kind of like a split dress, so you want to overlap that on top of her leg and then create an opening. So there's an opening between her dress, so you can see both legs crossed over. So you can see one leg going straight down. And I'm making her foot a little bit more downward because it looks more elegant. We can draw on the shoe. Make sure the shoe is covering partially a partial bit of the foot, because some people mistake it as draw the whole foot first and then draw a shoe like right underneath it. That's not how a shoe works. Shoe covers partial a bit of the foot, so you want to make sure that this is not the whole foot. This is just part of it that's being seen. And here we have the other side, which is the knee. Let me zoom out so we can see what this looks like as a total. So far, so good. Here we have kneecap, which is facing towards us, and then the inner thigh, and then we have our calf muscle kind of going down. So this is her left leg, this is her right leg. So make sure that when you're drawing the foot, this is where her big toe is. That's what it looks like. So here is the chair. Make sure it's sturdy enough to support her. Let's give her a little cushion as well. It's more of a fancy chair, huh? So let's just put it like that. So here is our sitting pose. Now finally, let's go for our last pose, which is more of a dynamic pose, but sort of standing. This is, I would have put a dancing pose, but this I think has a really nice dynamic curves and nice S-curves that I really want to go over this kind of pose. So last but not least, let's go ahead and draw in the last pose here. So it's more of a standing pose once again, but notice that we have an S-line here. So what do I mean by S-line? Well, S-line just means that the pose kind of creates a nice contrapposto or opposite look. So I'll show you real quick. Draw the head, neck is going straight, but rib cage and pelvis are going opposite directions. So here we have the rib cage, and here we have the pelvis. So they're kind of going in the form of an S shape. So by doing that, that gives a very, very nice appeal to the pose. We're almost done here. So now, and another thing is that the legs are kind of spread far apart, which kind of gives a more like wider stance. Therefore, it gives a nice appeal. So I'm making this leg go all out more straight. And this leg can go back in space, therefore creating more of that kind of S-line or kind of that tension that you see. Of course, we can draw in our kneecap and our calf or lower leg. Make sure it's thick on top and thick at the thin at the bottom, and vice versa. So this is what it looks like so far. You can see that S shape that looks very, very dynamic. And her arm is more up, which therefore creates more nice, interesting angles. And then she has a more stable arm, which is more in front and it's more straight. So there's kind of like different things going on that make it look really, really nice. So that is our base for now. That's what it looks like as a whole. We can go ahead and erase. So we are almost done here. So let's go ahead and zoom in. And let's draw. So here we have her face. Make it nice and cute and round if you want to. Then draw her hair, which is more flowing downward and kind of nice and long. And make sure that when you're drawing hair and it's in front of the body, for example, make sure it kind of travels in space and kind of follows the form as well. Here we have tank top or midriff. Here's her chest. And here is the midriff that kind of, it's just barely tight on her top, on the top half. So notice that there's a little bit of an opening. Shows that's kind of loose. Not too loose, but loose enough that it's not super tight. Here's her abs. You can just draw a nice little line down here. And then here's a high waist skirt, which of course you want to follow along the form like a cylinder. Here's a 3-finger gap. Here is the dress, and it kind of splits into two, so it almost looks a little bit like a pencil skirt. So you want to drag that straight across. Of course, adding some nice folds to show tightness is good, because you can see that it's kind of tight because there's a lot of folds that are more straight and close together. Then for the legs, it's pretty easy. All you just want to do is just smooth out the rest of the legs here. So we have our kneecap, our calf, and then our shoes, which is sort of like a wedge looking shoe. So I'm just kind of drawing in the 1 strap, 2 strap, and then the wedge. Same thing on the other side. Kind of add in a little sartorius bit because that looks really nice. Then calf. Notice how there's almost like opposites against when it comes to the shoes as well, or when it comes to the feet. And that's more of like a pigeon-toed look. That just gives it a more cutesy look. So when the feet are going inward, that gives it a more cuter and more stylish look. So expect that a lot when it comes to anime poses. So that is our upper body. Now let's go with our arms and we'll be done. Deltoid. Our bicep, which is facing towards us, and then her armpit. Here we have her forearm, which is thick towards the elbow and then thin towards the wrist. And same thing when it comes to her other arm. So thick towards the elbow, thin towards the wrist. And then her hand, which you don't have to do completely like hers, but I'm just doing the basic thing here. So that is pretty much it for these poses. Let me know what you guys think. Let me zoom out and show you guys what I've done, or what we've done. So here we have a standing cutesy pose here. Here we have our sitting pose, elegant pose, and then here we have our dynamic, stylish pose. Let me know what you guys think, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.